And so this is a message directly to you, Dr. J.B. Peterson. Perhaps you realize by now, at least, that the reaction you've provoked from the Muslim community and others following your podcast with Benjamin Netanyahu has been one of great dismay, of anger, of disbelief, shock, at how somebody like yourself, who had been, of course, once perhaps celebrated, applauded in many parts of the community for your stance and your stand on issues of social justice and some cases of morality, had now seemingly turned sides. Your new associations, your new companions in life, the Daily Wire, the podcast, your failure to interrogate Netanyahu on some such basic points, the rewriting, fabrication of history by Netanyahu, and you, of course, perhaps I don't think you can claim ignorance because these are such basic points, such obvious lies, deceit, deceptions that were espoused by Netanyahu in your presence. You should have at least questioned him further, at least interrogated him and asked him for more. But it seems you were kind of complicit in this. And my advice to you in all of this, in fact, is this: that remember, number one, that God will judge all of us, that there will come a time we will all stand in that divine setting, and all of us will face divine accountability. Your knowledge, your experience, your standing in society will be a proof for you or a proof against you on that day. Number two, realize that history also will record all of us, will judge us, in fact. I was in Munich just some months back. I traveled to Munich University and I went to the atrium where Sophia Scholl stood with Hans Scholl, and I was there and I kind of imagined the scene when she threw that wad of leaflets down and they all scattered on the floor, and on that's February 18, 1943, and they were caught, of course, and then sentenced to death on February 22nd, 1943 by the Nazis. And I went there just to kind of see if I could somehow in some way encapsulate the moment of history in the setting of that space. Now in Germany, in fact, the road leading to the university is called the Sophia Scholl Plaza. It's a road named after her today. There are more than 200 schools in Germany named after Sophia Scholl. Her old school called Ulm Gymnasium is now called Hans and Sophie Scholl Gymnasium. The highest award and prize offered in Germany is a Sophie Award. History might say something at one point, as it did for these two brothers and sisters, and of course the White Rose Movement, as it did for them in that time when the Nazis were in power. But it says something different about them today. History records people differently later, afterwards. The choices you make in life today, the alliances you kind of take on board for yourself, the job that you have, the things that you speak and don't speak, all of these will make a difference. If they don't make that much difference today, they will make a lot of difference, in fact, tomorrow. You have that choice to make. You have to choose to be on that right side of history. Point number three is for you to take a leaf out of your own book. One of your first, in fact, the first principle I think you have in your laws of power and change is to stand up straight with your shoulders back. To stand up straight with your shoulders back, how I interpret it, means to have a degree of courage and resistance in yourself, in your personality. And I think that this is, of course, a time where that's needed. You have made a great error, a great mistake. But I would say that, even though we make mistakes in life, there is always a chance for us to correct those mistakes. Your apology, your disassociation with war criminals makes a difference to you as a person in terms of your consciousness, and also to the world that is observing and watching you. That is something I think we have to bear in mind. And I want therefore for you to take these things on board. Remember, of course, that life is short for all of us, that God will judge us all of us. History will record us and judge us, all of us. Remember the bravery of people like Hans Scholl and Christopher Brobst and Willie Graf and Sophia Scholl and others of the White Rose movement. And remember how they figured today, even though yesterday they were deemed to be traitors and so on and so forth. We have to make that choice in light of your own principle of standing up straight with your shoulders back. I hope these words can mean something for you and remind you, of course, that the legacy of Palestine is one that is engraved in the collective memory of the international world. The World Cup, in fact, was a reminder, wasn't it so? A reminder that, you had Palestinian flags draped around people all over. What amazing, shocking scenes. What about Morocco? Remember, of course, that what you might think there's progress in all of this Abraham Accords and normalization. It means absolutely nothing. It's trash. Trash. It's trash, of course, to try and think you can normalize with people, or nations, I would say, governments, at the expense of the suffering of a people. The elephant in the room is the suffering of the Palestinian people. The elephant in the room is the settlement program that is unending. The elephant in the room is the occupation of Palestine. That is the elephant in the room. And so, at least if we take the symbolic entry of the World Cup here, and you could see that even the Moroccan players and the Moroccan team were celebrating Palestine, doesn't mean that normalizing with a country is normalizing with the people. It means the opposite, in fact. You have not normalized with the people. They have not normalized with Israel, even though the country is doing something else. It's a point in case. And so therefore, the Muslims and others who are conscientious, the objectors, the people of many of the refuseniks who refused to serve in the IDF, the conscientious people of our world who refuse to bow down to pressure, refuse the false narrative, the lies of the Zionists. The brave people of our world will all side with those who are victimized and oppressed in our world, whether they're in occupied Palestine or anywhere else. That is the right thing for any right person to do. That is what it means to stand up straight with your shoulders back. And I think that this is a reminder that one day, of course, Palestine will be free. That one day Palestine will be liberated. Injustice can't remain forever. And what's going to happen is that when that history is told and narratives are unearthed, and remember, of course, that the story is told by millions and millions of people, what's going to happen to those voices of betrayal, voices of deception, voices of deceit, voices of falsifying of history? They're going to be in the garbage bin of history, meaningless now. The ones, and you would know, of course, as a clinical psychologist, that whenever you have situations of oppression, genocide, mass killing, injustice, you have four kinds of people that emerge. You have the perpetrators, in this case, the Zionists. You have the victims, in this case, the Palestinians. And you have the bystanders. Those who are really worse, I think, than the other two, because they simply watch it all happen and they clap it all along and they laugh it all through and they do nothing, and they do nothing to assist and help where they could have and they should have done something to aid and assist. And number four, you have the rescuers. You have those brave souls, those brave people who fight back, who use their courage, use their strength, whatever they have at their disposal, the words, who use their courage, who use their sentiments, who use something to push back against the injustice. Those are the ones that we aim and hope to be of. Hope to be of the rescuers. Those are the ones that are the good people, the good lot. We ask Allah to make us of those people, rescuers. And I think you have a choice Like we all have a choice in life. And I would hope that you would make the right choice, for your own benefit, for your own sake, and for the sake of your salvation in this life and in the next life also. And lastly, I would invite you to look more into Islam. Perhaps what you've read hasn't been sufficient. What you've read maybe has come from the other side of the fence who seek to malign, but be a person of that same principle of courage by learning more and reading more about the great faith of Islam. There's so much, of course, that we've spoken about already in terms of the way that the Muslim history has been a source of great hope bearing for the Jews in their own moments of tragedy and moments of turmoil as they were dispossessed from several places during pogroms committed by the Christians, and they would find a safety and safe haven with the Muslims in many parts of the world. Maybe you should read more about that history and more about the contributions of Islamic civilization to the world, in fact, as large. And so I would invite you, therefore, to read the Quran, to learn about the beautiful life and character of the Prophet Muhammad, peace of Allah be upon him and upon all of the prophets of Allah. And I will leave it there.